Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing very well and enjoying your holidays. My name is Dr. Cliff Uber Kodero, and I will be your instructor for this class. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself and show you a few things that we will be doing for this class. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm doing, so you know what is going on. Some of the things that this class is asynchronous, which means you do most of the work. You're not going to be seeing me. Occasionally, I might be doing a lecture if there's a need. Other times, I'm not. If there's an alternative that is much better through YouTube, then I'll share that. But I'll be available on email, and you can reach me through email or schedule our office meeting with me digitally. So that is what it is. That's how we're gonna roll for the class. I already wrote the syllabus. It's on Canvas. I want you to be familiar with it. There's gonna be a final exam for this class, and there's gonna be at least 2 or 3 weekly discussions online. It's gonna be a very intense class because we are covering things that should be normally take 15 weeks. We're doing it in about 2.5 weeks. So it's very intense. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I expect that you will learn a lot and I'll be available to support you. But you're going to have to do the work. And that's just part of it. So I'm going to share my screen so you will know a little bit about what we are going to be learning. So um, you're not going to see me once I start sharing the screen. So I'm going to start from here, um, so that you can see what it is that we are doing. So here's an introduction to Political Science 101 and a little bit about my background, like why am I qualified to teach this class? And one of them is that I have a PhD in international relations from Florida International University. I've been teaching for the last 8 years, so I kind of think that I know what I'm doing. Um, I also have an MA in African diaspora studies, which is sort of like the study of Black people, also from FIU, which is a leading school for those things. Um, and I have another MA in International Studies from University of Wyoming, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Principia College. So this gives me the credence to be a professor at a college level. So I just want you to know that whoever is leading this class knows whatever they're doing. I have done a lot of scholarship. I've written book chapters, book journal works, edited books, and so many things. I'm also a teacher scholar, which means I instruct, and I also on the side I'm producing knowledge. So just so you know that. So what do we intend to cover? Um, well, for this lecture, I just want to do the general goals of the class, which is to assess whether the study of politics may be considered a science or not. Why do we call it a science? We also want to explore a few theories on politics, briefly into that, but mostly just explore the general goals of this class. One of the things we want to cover for an introduction to political science class is to make you aware of your political situation so that you can avoid being misused and also take part in your society's development and your own individual growth. So, our central goal is to ask whether democracy should be expanded. Is it a practical process or endeavor to push democracy abroad? So democracy is sort of like the center point for our class, but we get to it by learning other historical events and systems of government that happen everywhere. So this class is not a US government class, nor is it a comparative political class. It draws from examples from the US or of the US and other lands, other countries, to introduce you to the field of political science, hoping that you will enjoy it and learn a few things. Now, what is the purpose of political science? Political science is unlike medical sciences. The medical sciences aim at helping individuals improve their health by relying on experimentations and improving on mistakes, right? But political science aims to improve human governance by studying patterns, mistakes, and inferences. So, while the medical sciences is a qualified natural science that does its business through experimentation until they figure out what is right, political science intends to improve the human condition by improving the human governance. So it's a much more holistic way of thinking about life. Both of them are involved in the process of improving the quality of life for human beings in totality. So once we know, now we know that political science is a systematic study which is engaged in the process of improving human governance. So what is politics? Politics, on the other hand, is the ongoing competition between people and groups to favor and to shape policy. Therefore, politics at the core is about power. It's about who gets what, when, and how. It's about how societies make distributions, about choices about distribution of resources and distribution of power, and policies that are centered and those that are dissented, and to whom those policies are dissented, and for those whose policies are centered in the place. So ultimately, the overall conclusion is that politics is about power. Okay, so power then requires a definition, and political power refers to the ability of getting one person to do something that they will necessarily not do. So, when somebody has power, power is often measured on outcome. Did you get the individual to do what necessarily they would be not doing? So, politics influence, it's supposed to be influenced by rationality, i.e., people make choices that are in their best interests. Okay? So, a rational human being knows what decisions to make, which are aligned with what objective they have. Okay? So this idea of rationality is the hallmark of a civil society, a society that is well informed of debates and issues that are ongoing, and that allows debate and policy to dictate choices rather than individual whims. Okay? So, but even though we know that rationality is an important ingredient of politics, it should be the driving factor. Politics also influenced by irrationality, sort of like the psychology of people. Therefore, politics can be, people can be irrational when it comes to politics. They can be dominated by their emotions, their cultural cues, their stereotypes, and manipulation. So the level of irrationality often, when heightened and intensified, leads to choices that lead to fascist regimes that we talk about, or totalitarian system, or even genocidal regime. But like for example, we talk about Hitler, we talk about Marxist-Leninist states and other countries, or strong man politics. So we see that in Hungary, and we see evidence of that mushrooming in the United States as well. So even though the goal is to get to rationality, often we've had to deal with irrationality as influential in politics. You can call it racism is a form of irrationality, or ethnic bias is a form of irrationality if it does influence your political decisions. There's so many fields in political science, okay? You can have US politics, also called domestic politics. You can have comparative politics, which deals with comparing political system. You can study international relations. which is about relations of states. You can also study political theory, public administration, public policy, and international political economy. The last one and the third one are the areas that I have much more expertise on. So in political science, we often deal with theory, all right? So it's not just a general description of things. We talk about theory as instrumental in our understanding and analysis of events. So theory provides a framework for understanding and explaining political phenomena. Theory allows us to organize knowledge, okay? Theories are sort of like the lenses upon which you take to assess a situation. And these lenses are sort of like colored. So you can think about one theory as color blue, another as color red, and another as color yellow. So when you look at the theory, you're taking into the color on the color that the theories are projecting. So in doing that, you get to have an organized knowledge. You can predict outcomes, okay? So theories can be predictive, even though that's usually not the goal, uh, but they end up doing that. They can promote critical thinking. It allows you to question assumptions that are already existing in your head, but mostly we use them to guide research. They suggest research questions and methodologies that we use to investigate political phenomena, which is everyday happenings. Some of the theories in political science include behavioralism, which is a methodological approach that emphasizes the study of observational behavior and their relationships to quantifiable data and empirical analysis, which rejects traditional normative approaches. So behavioralism is about data analysis, about scientific analysis of human behavior at micro unit levels. So behavioralism borrows from economics and the natural sciences a little bit. And it does allow the human beings are unpredictable in general, but we can predict their choices, their behavior by choices. So people tend to make repeat choices over time. And those, as they make those choices, they leave evidence, which you can then use to analyze. So it's kind of explains why algorithms work the way they work. It explains why you can't get an ad about certain things um, over time. So behavioralism is a very important theory, which is a modern theory in political science as of now. Other than behavioralism, we have rational choice theory. And rational choice theory explores the assumption of human being to make decisions that are best based on their own interests. Okay? So in rational choice theory, we think mostly about individualism. We think about individuals, primary actors in political life, and their decisions are based on of those individuals based on their interests at life. Utility maximization is a big part of it. Individuals seek to maximize their own utility and satisfaction. Okay, so you make a decision based on what is this decision going to help me with in life. Okay, so usually rational choice theory assumes everybody's a rational actor. There's self-interest involved, and there's an invisible hand, or sort of like market factors that determine human choices. Okay. The other theory I want to talk about is called the new institutionalism. The new institutionalism is a theoretical framework in political science that emphasizes the role of institutions in shaping political behavior and outcomes. So, institutions are defined as a set of rules, norms, and practices that constrain and enable political actors. Therefore, characteristics of individualism, new institutional theory is those sort of like the individual is subsumed by institutional factors. The individual finds character and identity in the institutions that are already existing, right? So institutions kind of shape your life. Okay? If you live in a democracy and the country is shaped by democratic principles, you become a Democrat because that's what you're used. You get socialized into that. Okay? Uh, Institutionalism also recognizes historical contingency. It means the recognition of role of historical factors, right? Usually, the criticism is that institutionalist theory thinks that life is path dependent. It's shaped by institutions that are already existing, and most people are just going to follow in line to what is existing institutionalism. Okay. It kind of struggles with what we call I, isomorphism. Isomorphism, it is institutions tend to become similar over time, often due to pressures from other institutions or the broader environment. So, like bureaucracies, that's sort of like existing structures that facilitate organizations becoming problematic rather than helpful in solving societal problems. So new institutional theory, big theory, limited agency when you compare it with rational choice theory, but it's more like a cultural lens of understanding political science. So a little bit more on new institutions. So now, when you think about that, you think about the theories that lend shape political science, then you have a good idea of what you're going to use to understand what we are learning. There are other theories and ideologies that we talk about in subsequent classes, but you will see that in the next few days. But for now, I just want you to think about these three theories that I've highlighted as instrumental in understanding political science. And I hope that you're going to enjoy the rest of the class and you can reach out to me whenever you can. And we can have a much more interesting conversation in the next few weeks. Thank you very much. Bye bye.